Modern medicine is a very important part of our lives in today's date. But medicine had been practiced all over the world in different cultures since ancient times. This practice of medicine in India was and is still known as the practice of Ayurveda. Ayurveda, in today's date, indirectly or directly, still continues to be part of the lives of the Indian families. This science being part of our culture, how much and what do we know about it? In today's episode, we discuss Ayurveda, learn the basics, understand the approach of Ayurveda in living a healthy life, how it deals with diseases, and much more. To discuss the same, today we have with us Dr. Basil Cardozo. Dr. Basil is an MD in Ayurveda. He has specialized in Kaya Chikitsa. This expert has bagged innumerable experiences and achievements in the field of Ayurveda. To highlight a few, he was an honorary consultant in the Deutsche Academy for Ayurveda and Medicine, Berlin, Germany. He has delivered lectures on Ayurveda in India and around a few places in the world. Dr. Cardozo, for 17 years, is a part of the board of studies in the Goa University in clinical Ayurveda. Being an expert, he has mentored over 25 research papers and has mentored 8 MD scholars in their research in Ayurveda. In the year 2022, he received the Young Achiever Award by the Vaidyananal Research Foundation, Pune. Dr. Basil Cardozo is practicing and teaching in the Goa College of Ayurveda for the past 17 years. This conversation with Dr. Basil was a learning process for me. I'm sure you will experience the same by the end of this episode. Before we dive straight into the episode, a request. If you like our content, do share it with your friends and family. Do like and subscribe to our channel. Leave us your comments in the comment box to get better and help us grow. This is an episode on Ayurveda with Dr. Basil Cardozo on the People Tree Show. Dr. Basil Cardozo, a very warm welcome to the People Tree Show. How are you today?
Excellent.
Great. Our first meeting was a learning experience for me, and I was so looking forward to this conversation to learn more and share your knowledge with our viewers. So, are we good to go?
Definitely.
Ayurveda has been part of our lives indirectly, and it has only been confined to home remedies now. So, to begin with, can you define the term Ayurveda? Because as far as what I've read, it says a lot. Plus, if you could, help us understand the approach of Ayurveda as a science to live a healthy life.
Well, Ayurveda is not just about herbs. It's a science by itself. A science which has been existing since eternity. If you look at the origins of it, it is supposed to be eternal because it is coming right from the gods.
Right.
And it is the gods for the benefit of mankind which bestowed the science onto human race. So basically you need to understand that it is something eternal with a very scientific approach to it. It's all about how we interpret it and how we understand it. The big problem today is about the lacunae of interpretation of the science.
Okay.
And because it is not interpreted properly, that is why it is not understood correctly. And because it is not understood correctly, there is so much in among society where there are misappropriations which are there or misnomers which are there, which give a bad name to the science itself. A lot of people are not aware that it's a science altogether. They just look at it as, just like you said, home remedies.
Right.
Okay. But it is a science by itself, which is defined by its principles. The basic principles of Ayurveda are what make it different from anybody else. It is not just a collection of few herbs which will make the science. Okay, it is principles, basic principles which are there, which when followed thoroughly will help in giving you good health.
Okay.
Now, Ayurveda by itself suggests that it is, if you look at it, the term Ayurveda, it is a Veda, one of the Vedas. It's a Upveda rather, and that is what is going to we are going to discuss about in the whole science, in the whole talk today. If you look at Ayurveda, if you look at modern medicine first, modern medicine is describing about how you will get all right. So it's a science for sick people, right? So if you are sick, you approach a doctor and he will cure you of your problems.
Right.
But the big difference between Ayurveda and the rest of the sciences is that Ayurveda, if you see how it works, it is talking about the science working for healthy individuals and for sick as well. When we look at the basic principles and we look at how it works, Ayurveda talks about swasthasya swastha rakshanam. That means keeping the healthy person healthy,
Okay.
or maintenance of health in short. Second, aturasya vikara parimoksham. That is, you are going to, if the person falls sick, you will treat him and make him normal. So these are two things which you have to understand. Okay, and this is the base, this is the cake on which the icing is then laid upon, right? So you need to understand that Ayurveda not only talks about making sick people healthy, but it also involves keeping the healthy person healthy.
Okay.
And that is where the industry of wellness or maintenance of health is flourishing so much. So this is what I would say in briefly what Ayurveda is all about.
Okay. So as a science, like you said, modern medicine and Ayurveda, like modern medicine, it's like when you're sick, you go to the doctor. But we normally make this mistake of treating Ayurveda and allopathy as the same. We look at it from the same lens. So when it comes to treating diseases, what is the approach of Ayurveda?
Well, the approach is totally different, because if you look at the basic principles of Ayurveda, we talk about the three doshas. Okay, that is the Vata, Pitta, and the Kapha.
Okay.
Okay, we have the Sapta Dhatus, Rasa, Rakta, Mausa, Med, Asti, Majja, Shukra.
Okay, so if you could just translate it, doctor, for a better understanding.
Well, we cannot give you a one-to-one translation of all these terms.
Okay.
Because see, if you look at Vat, it is just not, you cannot translate it as air.
Okay.
Because there is a lot of metaphysical elements which are involved in that, and that needs to be understood.
Okay.
So I would prefer maintaining the same term as it is.
Okay.
Rather than translating it into English.
Okay.
Because the translation would totally spoil the intricacy of the science which is involved in that.
Okay.
So if it is Vat, let us look at it as Vat, and if it is Pitta, let us look at it as Pitta, and
Okay.
if it is Kapha, let us, because you cannot say that Kapha is phlegm, okay? Because that would be a very bad interpretation of the same. So if you really need to understand, and you have to understand the science beyond it, and to explain each of these elements itself is going to take me an hour for the explanation of each of these terms. So I would prefer that you look at it as Vat, Pitta, Kapha, and if you're interested, you can read up on it and understand what is the individual thing about it.
Okay.
So the same thing about the Sapta Dhatus and the three Malas.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the basic elements which are involved. So we have the three doshas, we have the three Sapta Dhatus, we have the three Malas. Now, in terms of the Manas component of Ayurveda, we talk about the Sattva, Raja, Tama. Again, it is these principles are very important and need to be understood when we are looking at the person in terms of his basic prakriti and in terms of treating him as well.
Okay.
Okay, because when we are looking at the prakriti of the person, we will be looking at each component which is involved in that. And when we are going to choose the medicine for the person, we are going to look at it from this angle as well. So
Okay.
the choice of drug also will be totally opposite to the prakriti of the person or to the constitution of that person,
Okay.
right?
Okay. So, just correct me if I'm wrong. Like, is dosha and prakriti the same, or
No.
what is the difference?
It is totally different.
Okay.
Doshas, if you see, are the basic constitution of the human person. Okay.
Okay.
For example, if you look at the three doshas, they are basically Vata, Pitta, and Kapha.
Okay.
Whereas Prakriti is of various types.
Okay.
The Prakriti could be analyzed as the Prakriti of at Vat, Pitta, Kapha Prakriti of an individual. Or then you have the Dvandvaj Prakriti, that is
Okay.
Vata, Pitta, Vat, Kapha, Pitta, Kapha. Like this, you will have the Prakritis where two components are involved.
Okay.
And the three dosh are involved in that. So you have the third, the seven type of Prakriti over there.
Okay. So, from what I've understood, dosha, it's like the prakriti is derived from the dosha. Because
No, the Prakriti is made by various doshas, by a combination of dosha or a dominance of a particular dosha.
Okay.
So if a person is predominant in Vat, then we and he's showing the properties of that, then we will say he's Vata Pradhan Prakriti.
Okay, that's the domination.
Yes, the domination of particular dosha in that person's personality.
Okay. Okay. So, and how does a person understand his or her dosha or the prakriti, to be more precise?
Well, to understand the doshas, we have a total different set, and to understand the prakriti, there is a total different questionnaire. So, what we usually do is we will ask the questions with regard to the prakriti and analyze that. So that and that has to be done again in detail, where there will be almost 30 questions or 50 questions which can be asked in your prakriti questionnaire, on the basis of which we will find out what is the exact constitution of that person.
Okay.
And depending on that, the use of that prakriti or the constitution will help us to understand what diseases the person could get, what he is susceptible to, what medicines will suit him, what medicines will work bad on him or are contraindicated for him. All that will be, we can get a very good idea from the prakriti of the individual.
Okay. So, like the questions will be will be based on like the
No,
nature
the
of the
questions are
person.
already there. The
Okay.
questionnaire is already there. You just
Okay.
have to work from one
Work.
person to another when
Okay.
you keep asking the questions.
Okay. Like, is it like the nature or how do we understand the questions? Like, just for a better understanding for our audience.
Well, it would be an innumerable amount of, I told you about 30 to 50 questions. For examples, we will ask the patient as to what are his likings.
Okay.
Okay. So, if the person is Vata Prakriti, he will have likings towards certain things. If his Pitta Prakriti, he is going to have liking towards certain things. His interests also will depend on what is his dosha predominance.
Okay.
Okay. So, what he wants to eat also will be according to that.
Okay.
What he wants to, his sleeping hours will be decided on that.
Okay.
On the way he gets the urine, the stool,
Okay.
that will also be governed by the prakriti
By
of
the
the
prakriti.
individual.
Okay.
So that's why all these parameters need to be understood and need to be checked before you come to a complete understanding of the prakriti of the individual.
Okay. Okay. So, doctor, like the prakriti, like does it like vata pitta kapha? Does it have to do anything with the elements? That's earth, fire, wind, water.
Yes, very much.
Okay.
Okay. If you look at, you have just talked about 3 elements,
Right.
whereas there are 5.
5, yes.
Okay. So if you look at Vat, it will be dominant of Akash and Vayu.
Okay.
Pitta will be predominant in Agni. And Kapha will be predominant in Prithvi and Up.
Okay.
Okay, so you have the 5 elements as Prithvi, Up, Tej, Vayu, and Akash.
Okay.
Right? So the first 2, that is Prithvi and Up, will be forming the predominance of Kaph.
Okay.
The middle one, that is Agni, will be predominant in Pitta, and the last 2, Vayu and Akash, will be predominant in Vat.
Okay. So like this entirely constitutes the principles also of
Yes,
Ayurveda.
There is one very important principle of Ayurveda called Pancha Mahabhut Siddhant.
Okay.
Now, what is this Pancha Mahabhut? Is basically these 5 elements what you just talked about. So these 5 elements will be there in anything and everything that a Ayurvedic doctor would look at.
Okay.
For example, if you are eating a certain food item, we will look at the Pancha Mahabhuti constituency of that item.
Okay.
Okay, if you are an individual, we will look at the Panch Mahabhuti constitution of that person that you are, and whatever you excrete. Okay, we will look at the Panch Mahabhuti constitution of that as well.
Okay.
So when you fall sick, when we want to treat you, okay, we will look at the Panch Mahabhuti constitution of the drugs which we are going to choose to treat you. And if you are a healthy person, if we are going to give you some rasayan, okay, there also we will look at the Panchamahabhut constitution of the rasayan element.
Okay.
So Panchamahabhut, being a basic fundamental principle of Ayurveda, will have to be thought of at every level of treatment, at every level of wellness treatment, and the prakriti as well of the individual.
Okay. Okay. When it comes to, like you said, does diseases also have their prakriti? As in, because you mentioned while you were explaining. So, do you all look at the prakriti of the disease also?
No, the prakriti of individual is what we will actually consider.
Okay.
And not the disease.
Okay.
What we will look at is the disease as such. The disease will be in Ayurveda. One basic principle that is there is that the disease is not important.
Okay.
Okay. There are so many diseases which have not been named in Ayurveda. For example, AIDS or HIV. Now, there is no, if you look at the text, there is no reference of AIDS in the text. Then how do we treat such an individual? Now, what we do in the treatment is we understand the basics of that person and how he has got the disease and what are the constituent factors of the disease.
Okay.
According to that, we are going to treat the patient on the basic principles of Ayurveda, using the basic principles of Ayurveda.
Okay.
So, therefore, the name of the disease is not very important to us.
Okay.
But the treatment is what is most important. Okay. And therefore, though names have not been mentioned in the text, like today we are talking about COVID-19. Again, is it COVID-19 mentioned in the text? No. And how do we treat it? We treat it using the basic principles of Ayurveda, using the tenets of Ayurveda. So that is the most important thing that you need to understand.
Okay.
That we, as a doctor, we are looking at the treatment of diseases which were not known at that time, and treating them using the basic principles of Ayurveda. Yeah.
Doctor, in today's date, many people are reluctant to approach the treatment of Ayurveda because of diet restrictions. So, could you shed some light on that? Why is it so?
Well, diet restrictions would be because of different elements. Let us look at every element involved in that. First of all, why does an individual fall sick? See, when you're talking to me, you're talking about patients, right? Right. So why does a person fall sick? A person falls sick because he's gone off the track. Something has derailed in the system. So what is that has derailed is what we have to identify. Okay. Now, if you look at a diet of an individual, for example, you have people in today's society who are eating a lot of Chinese food. Okay. Now, Chinese itself is a misnomer. There is nothing Chinese involved actually in the Chinese that we eat.
Yes,
I
yes.
hope you're aware of that.
Yes, very
Okay.
much.
Yes. So, let's say we have people eating a lot of Chinese food today. So, what is that goes wrong in this people is there is a lot of pitta and vat which is increasing in these patients. Now, let us understand why. Because the food that is made in this Chinese restaurant, so called food which is made, the most common thing that will be prepared will be the Chinese fried rice or the Chinese chow chow or the noodles. Okay. Now, how is it prepared? A huge pan is taken, and first thing, a lot of oil will be put in that. Okay, and then they'll saute it with different ingredients, which will be just popped into the pan, and then they are stir fried. Okay, and which involves a lot of ajinomoto,
Right.
which is very bad for health. Okay, but again adds a lot of taste and flavor to the food.
Right.
Right. Now, the problem with today's generation is we don't value the ingredients of the food. We value the taste of the food.
Right.
So we are just crazy about how it tastes like. We don't care about how nutritious it actually is. Now, when you look at this food, okay, this will increase the pitta and the vat elements in the body.
Okay.
Now, say you have had Chinese food for once in a month, okay, once in a blue moon. Will it create a problem?
No.
Not as much.
Not as much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maximum you will have a little upset stomach, and next morning you have had motions which will burn you at the anus, and that's it. Okay. Next day you are ready to go. But now you have, say, a bachelor who's going to office, coming from his office. He doesn't have time to cook, or he's got no food ready at home. So he goes every evening to a Chinese restaurant, has this, and is carrying on with his life. When he's doing this on a day-to-day basis, that's when it's going to create disease. That's when he's going to fall sick. And what are the diseases which these individual will be first facing? Will be diseases of related to pitta and vat. So what he will get? He would get diseases like grahani, which is somewhat could be correlated to irritable bowel syndrome.
Okay.
Or he will get piles,
Okay.
which could be of the bleeding type or the dry piles. Or he could end up with diseases where there is a lot of indigestion, and it'll cause him a lot of burping and acidity. So what has happened now? Because he's having it on a day-to-day basis, that is, he's ended up in this soup. He's ended up in this problem. So now we have understood the pathology behind the formation of the disease. Now, when I want to treat this patient, what will I do? In Ayurveda, the first principle of treatment says Nidan Parivarjanam. What is the meaning of Nidan Parivarjanam? Nidan Parivarjanam means you isolate the cause. You first remove the cause of the disease. Now, if in an individual who's got piles, I am seeing the Nidan or the cause is his regular eating of Chinese food, then I definitely require to remove it off.
Right.
Otherwise, no matter how much medicines I will give this patient, I will be only suppressing his disease.
Right.
I will be able to suppress the problem, but I will never be able to treat the problem. So, if I'm going to look at treatment per se, then I have to ensure that I give the medication and I also remove the cause. So, Ayurveda is not against you having Chinese food once in a month or on an occasion. Yes, no, that's exactly not what Ayurveda is saying. But Ayurveda is insisting that if you are doing a mistake on a day-to-day basis, please, you need to change.
Okay.
Okay, you need to ensure that you have removed the causative factor from the problem,
Okay.
and then only will the treatment be complete.
Okay.
That means I will be able to get you out of the disease itself, and then after that I give you certain rasayana medicines, okay, which will help to restore your health to what it was before this all problem started. So this is what the principle of Ayurveda say. Now, if you look at the beauty here is threefold. One, the treatment, which all sciences do. Two, Ayurveda is talking about Niran Parivarjan, which is important thing which only Ayurveda talks about diet and its importance. And three is the Rasayan. That means I have treated the person, I have already cured him, but I am ensuring that now I'm going to give him certain medicines with the help of which he will not get the disease again.
Okay.
So the repetition of the disease somewhere back in his life will also not take place. That is the beauty of Ayurveda. So now when you look at the diet is not to help the doctor to treat you, but it is for you to first get all right as fast as possible. And once you've got all right, you don't get this problem ever again.
Okay.
So the whole principle of diet is to help you first to recover quickly,
Right.
one, and for you not to get this disease again. That's the beauty of maintaining a diet.
So a healthy diet is very important.
Very much. It's very much. It's like, say, if you have a Mercedes and you are not putting the right petrol in it. Say you say my car is very expensive and I don't want to waste more on fuel, and you put adulterated fuel in the Mercedes. No, the engine is lovely, but because of your mistake of putting adulterated fuel in it, you are destroying the engine.
Okay.
The same way, even if we are blessed with the best of health, just because we are not eating nutritious food as prescribed in Ayurveda, we are destroying our health.
Right.
So that is the importance of the diet in Ayurveda, which everybody needs to understand.
Right.
It's not that we are starving you.
Correct.
We are trying to tell you, well, see, these things are meant for you, these things are not meant for you.
Right.
Now, on what basis do we decide what is meant for you and what not meant for you? Is your Prakriti.
Right.
Okay, is one part of it is Prakriti, second part of it would be seasonal. So there will be a certain diet recommended in a certain season. We will not tell you to eat the same food in every season. Okay, so this is also very important. So diet has to be combined with many other factors like Prakriti, season, the time of the day or night. Certain things have to be eaten only in the day, you cannot consume them at night. Okay.
For instance, curd.
Curd, here you are.
Yes.
So these are things which you need to understand, and they are very intricate. It's not that they are superficial. The intricacies of it are what you need to understand.
Okay. Doctor, one other question, like even when it comes to consuming milk products and fish, I just wanted to understand why, like I've heard that the combination is not right. So if you could just shed some light on that, because one of my close relatives had this vitiligo issue, and there was a lot of diet restriction which my relative had to follow, and one of which was told the combination of fish and milk is not healthy, or even in that matter meat and milk. So if you could shed some light on that.
First, let me clear the concept about meats, okay, or non-vegetarian food. Well, a lot of people come and ask me, doctor, I'm now going to start Ayurveda treatment. Does that mean that I am going to eat only vegetarian food? That's where one mistake lies. Well, you need not stick to only vegetarian food if you're taking Ayurveda medicines. You can have non-vegetarian food, but then again, as per your Prakriti, as per your constitution, right? So, first of all, that has to be identified, and then that has to be explained by the physician as to what is your constitution and what would be the vegetarian or non-vegetarian food which is good for you. Right? So, point blank saying that non-vegetarian food is a criminal offense is not correct.
Right.
Right? So you can consume non-vegetarian food, and therefore, if you look at the Ayurvedic text, the prakriti of these food items has been explained.
Right.
Okay, you will see the constitution and the details of what that food item will do if it is consumed has been explained in the text. If the writers of the text were interested in only feeding you vegetarian food, they would have never bothered about explaining to you the qualities of non-vegetarian food.
Right.
Anyways, it's not to be consumed. So why waste your time
Correct.
in explaining to you the qualities of it? So the first thing that needs to be understood is, well, non-vegetarian food is, consuming non-vegetarian food is not criminal. First. Second, now as you said, what about consuming a combination? Okay, a combination, as you explained, is of fish and milk.
Correct.
Right. Now, let me explain to you. First of all, nobody mixes fish and milk and eats together.
Right.
Is there any dish where fish and milk is?
The Bengalis do it,
Okay,
if I'm not
fine,
mistaken.
fine.
But like, for example, if you're consuming a dessert made of milk after having fish.
That's
That-
exactly what
yeah,
I'm talking about.
yeah.
So, nobody will consume fish with milk.
Right.
But what do we do? Like, for example, we have had a non-vegetarian meal which is having fish in various forms, and immediately post that we grab a ice cream.
Right.
Okay. Or there are some people who would want to have a tea or a coffee after a meal. Now, that's where the problem comes. So when you are having fish and milk together, right? Now, what is the science behind it? Why are you not supposed to have it? Well, when Ayurveda talks about food, there are basic principles given with regard to food, right from how much to eat, when to eat, how to eat, why to eat, etc. Now, in the principles, one of the most important thing mentioned is combinations, and there specifically they write that certain food items should not be mixed and eaten. Okay, because they are common. It's a Visham combination. So when you mix certain things and they have a reaction going on in the body, which will cause or initiate a disease process.
Okay.
Specifically with regard to the Rakta Dhatu. And therefore, it will initiate a disease process with regard to Rakta Dhatu. So that you don't end up initiating such disease process in your body, therefore, you are recommended not to have such combination of food.
Okay.
So the principle is you should not consume milk and fish together, because now by having milk and fish together, you are going to trend on a path where you are going to trigger a disease which was never existing in you. Now, the question is, say I have gone to my friend's birthday party and I have had, Aresha mackerels with, and after that I have had a cup of tea. So, next day will I get vitiligo? No, of course not. But if I am consuming this combination over a period of time repeatedly, that's when I am going to initiate a disease process. Or I've already got vitiligo because of some other reason, and now I'm consuming this combination, then I'm worsening the already existing vitiligo.
Okay.
So this is the reason why you are not supposed to consume it in this particular combination.
So, Rakta Dhatu means the disease related to the blood?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, I would go back to my first is.
It's not specific.
Yes.
Okay.
Let us not call Rakta as blood.
Okay. No, don't go by the term.
Yes.
Okay.
Just don't go by the term, because that's where you will complicate things.
Okay.
Right. So you can't translate every Sanskrit term as it is into English.
Yes. Yes.
And
very true.
that's the beauty of Sanskrit, and we
Yes.
should admire it.
Yes.
And I think we should maintain it as well.
Correct. So when it comes to diet, like even consuming, is it healthy consuming meat on a regular basis, or like, we have to have a difference in the diet, like on a daily basis?
Well,
Yeah.
consuming meat on a daily basis is definitely not welcome. Okay. Why? Because with that, you could create more problems of digestion for you.
Right.
Right. Now, if you have an individual who's exercising heavily, for him consuming meat on a daily basis makes sense.
Okay.
Because he is having so much metabolic activity going on in his body, where he can digest that meat and use it in his day-to-day activities, and that will not harm in any way. But you have a person who's very lethargic. For example, you have an office going person who gets up in the morning, has his breakfast, goes to the office, is having his lunch at 12:30, and then sits back in the office. He's working for the next few hours in the sitting position, gets back home, and again he's having his heavy dinner, and this is his day-to-day life. For such an individual, of course, having meat on a day-to-day basis is not healthy.
Okay.
Okay. What I recommend to my patients is that as a Goan, you can consume fish on a regular basis,
Right.
but that too, not the fried version of it. What I usually recommend is curry fish, or boiled fish. Okay. Or if you want to have fish, a very healthy way of having it is to smoke it on the coal, right? So that is also a very good way of cooking. But the problem is deep frying the fish or frying the fish. That's when you end up getting disease. The same thing is with meat. Having grilled meat is most welcome. Why? Because all the fat which is involved in the meat is going to be drained off.
Okay.
And you are going to have a healthy meat. Or you can make a curry which is not having a lot of coconut in it.
Okay.
Because the coconut, when it is sauteed and then curry is prepared out of it, there's going to be a lot of oil it will release. And that itself is going to make the dish very heavy to digest.
Right.
And there is meat and then there's coconut. So that is going to be, again, a very vicious combination. So it is going to be more difficult to digest. But a tandoor is definitely welcome, because that will help in getting digested very easily. And whatever fat element is there in the meat is also going to be thrown out. So that will help in making the meat healthy and good to eat. Right? Now, when I say have meats, I would recommend having meat bi-weekly, twice in a week.
Okay.
Not more than that. Right? And when I say meat, I'm more specific to red meats. So if you are having red meat, it would be have it weekly once.
Okay.
If you're having chicken, fish, that fish, I wouldn't mind a person having even thrice a week to 4 times a week.
Okay.
Chicken would be bi-weekly.
Okay.
This is what I would
So have it
suggest.
well balanced.
Yes, have a well balanced
Balance is
diet.
important.
That's what is most important.
Doctor, what would you recommend as a routine a person should follow on a regular basis? How should they go about it? What should be their approach?
See, what does Ayurveda say in that? What I say is not more important. Let's look at how Ayurveda looks at it. Ayurveda explains this in various regimens. So, if it's about the day, they will talk about the dinacharya. What are the activities that you have to do from morning to night? If it's for the night, they explain the detailed ratricharya. If it's a particular season, then they give you a detailed rutucharya. That what you have to do in each and every season. Okay. Now, let me explain the intricacies with regard to this. Why do we have to follow it? Now, for example, if you look at the seasonal changes, every season, when it comes in, it could be the root of a disease for itself. And therefore, in certain seasons, you will see the predominance of certain disease.
Right.
That you can also see in society, that even when a certain season will come in, it will come in and give you certain diseases. So this is what is very important to be understood. And that is why you will get predominance of certain diseases in certain seasons. Similarly, if you see the part of the day, also you will see that certain people will have certain problems in only a certain part of the day. For example, people will get up in the morning and then they will have sneezing,
Right.
right? They just throw a little water on their face and they will start sneezing. So people will come and complain to you, doctor, I get up in the morning, I've just got up and my nose starts watering. Or I start sneezing and the sneezing is so bad that my whole colony will come to know that Mrs. X is sneezing, right? But this sneezing will stop after a certain amount of time by itself. For example, person X might be sneezing, getting about 10 sneezes, and he stops by himself. There could be person Y who is getting sneezing for about half an hour, and after that they stop by itself. Now, why is this? Is because certain tenets or certain regimens are not being followed. Right? Now, this is with regard to particular part of the day. The same thing with regard to the night. Some people will tell you, doctor, I don't get sleep. But what they don't realize is that they've got to sleep at the wrong time itself. For example, today going to sleep at 11:30 in the night is fashion.
Right.
Right? But what does Ayurveda say about it? Well, that's not the right time to go to sleep. Right? A person would have almost finished 1/3 of his sleep by that time.
Correct.
And you are trying to sleep at that time. And then what do? You don't get sleep. So now you are stuck with your mobile. And then you are scrolling, you are going on WhatsApp, you're chatting, and then you realize it's 2:30 and you still not got sleep. And then what do you say? Oh, doctor, I'm not getting sleep. Well, is your body responsible for it? No, it's just because you're sleeping at the wrong time. And when it's time to sleep, you've not gone to sleep, you've not initiated your sleep process. And then when it's 1/3 down the sleeping time, now you try to sleep and you don't get, and then you get stuck to the mobile. So is your body responsible for it? No, it is you who are responsible for it. And then what do? At around 4 o'clock in the morning, you actually start getting sleep. And then because you've gone to sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning, or because your sleep has actually been initiated at 4 o'clock in the morning, you sleep up till 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Right? And now what has happened? Everything is disturbed.
Yeah.
And this disturbance is what is going to cause a disease. Right? According to Ayurveda, at 4 o'clock in the morning, you are supposed to be getting up.
Yeah.
Right? And not going to bed. Now, how many of us get up at 4 o'clock in the morning? That's the big question.
Right.
Now, try to understand why you need to get up at that time. Because certain doshas are in their predominance at that time, or are at their max at that time, and therefore the process of elimination will occur very well at that time. Now, supposing you get up at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, go defecate, you will have a very good motion. Okay? And you will be content with it. Now, try to understand what happens if you don't get up at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, which is called Brahmi Muhurt.
Right.
You don't get up at that time, and then you get up at say 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock. What has happened? First of all, you will not get the motion you desire. Why? Because now the predominance of doshas has changed. Now the doshas which are responsible for the defecation are not in the predominant state. So you have some other doshas which have become predominant, and they are not going to help you defecate. Secondly, if you look at the process, if the food remains in the gut for a longer period of time, the more long it remains in the gut, the water content from it is going to get absorbed.
Okay.
As a result of which the stool will get very dry, and therefore it will be more difficult to defecate it. Right? So, therefore, you need to understand that getting up at the right time is very important. Right?
Right.
Now, if you've got up at the right time, you will feel like going to sleep also at the right time.
Right.
Why? Because you are almost exhausted by then. Now, if you have got up at 10 o'clock in the morning, how can you expect to get sleep at almost around 8:30 or 9 in the night? Why? Because you've already got up late. So, therefore, it makes sense that you feel like going to sleep later in the night. So, what you have changed? you have changed the whole circadian rhythm of your body. And therefore, now your body is resisting it. But you are resisting what your body is trying to put in place. And therefore, there is a tussle between your body's regimen, the circadian rhythm, and what you are trying to change. And this disharmony is what is responsible for disease.
Okay.
So, what does Ayurveda say? Ayurveda talks about harmony between nature, between you, the person, and between the system of the person. And if this harmony is to be maintained, then the regimen that is told in Ayurveda has to be maintained. So, the purpose of the regimens, that is the Dinacharya, Rutucharya, or Ratricharya, is to help in maintaining harmony. That is Swasthasya Swastha Rakshanam. That is to maintain the health of the individual. Why? Because the doshas which are responsible for maintaining this health will be in harmony with each other. Now, the minute you change the regimen of the person, these doshas go in disharmony. And because of this disharmony, the person will end up initiating a disease process, and over a period of time, it will end up into a disease X, Y, Z.
Okay.
But try to understand this disharmony between the system of the person, and the Dinacharya or the Rutrucharya or the Ratricharya is not going to take place in a day's time or a week's time or a month's time. It is going to take number of days or maybe even months or years. Because when it is done on a day-to-day basis, only then disease will occur. It is like, if I am going to study, I am not going to be able to perfect at my job just if I read it once.
Right.
I need to go over and over it again and again. And the more I have gone over it, the more better insight I will have into whatever I'm trying to study. The same way, the routine, when followed by the body, it becomes very easy for the body to acclimatize and follow it.
Okay.
And if we are not having a certain regimen followed, then we are causing a disease to occur. So this is why the regimens have been mentioned. This is why the Dinacharya has been mentioned, the Rutucharya has been mentioned, and the Ratricharya has mentioned. And try to understand, you have to maintain a balance. Main thing that you need to understand is maintaining the balance. And this balance, if you maintain, you will never fall sick, or you will always enjoy a healthy state of body and mind. But if you are not able to maintain this balance, that's when the disease process will creep in. That's when you will initiate the process of some disease. And if you are able to maintain the balance, then you will always enjoy a healthy state of body and mind. And therefore, you will remain swastha, that is healthy.
Right. So doing everything moderate, keeping a balance, and working on it on a regular basis is what is important.
Is very, very important. Following a particular routine is very, very important.
Right.
Therefore, if you see, if I am having as a Goan, I'm having my regular fish curry rice, or if I'm a vegetarian Goan, I'm having my regular vegetables and rice and curry, I don't tend to fall sick. But then what happens is, on the weekend, I have a friend's party, and I go to the party, and at the party I have food which is cooked by somebody else, say a restaurant or a hotel.
Right.
And the next morning I suddenly realize something is wrong.
Right.
That's because your body is not acclimatized to that food which it has eaten over the whole week. And suddenly, when you are faced with a different amount of food, your body needs to get acclimatized.
Right.
And I think that doesn't need rocket science to understand.
Correct.
That's something which is very easily understandable.
I often face that issue. Normally when I go out, my body kind of, because I'm used to having a regular set, and then when I move out, it plays up. And I immediately know, okay.
It's just not you. I believe that's almost in every every
Every
individual that we
individual.
see.
It was just that we're not very aware about it.
Exactly. And we don't take a note of it.
Right.
Even if we are aware of it, we don't take a note, of it. Because we are so busy in our day-to-day life that if your body is giving you a signal, we many times tend to not take a note of it and don't understand that yes, this is a warning that our body is giving, that this is not meant for me, and I have still consumed it, and therefore I'm initiating a disease process.
Correct.
I'm initiating a process of falling sick. I'm initiating a vyadi. I'm initiating a disease to creep into me.
So, doctor, I have read up a lot on understanding the digestive system in Ayurveda. So, what is your take on that?
Oh well, you just open a Pandora's box here. See, try to understand that Ayurveda has a lot to talk about digestion. In fact, one of the papers that I wrote clearly suggests that nutrition without digestion is meaningless. Now, if you look at all the things around us, say you pick up any packet, on that the nutritional facts will be written. That well, this contains so much proteins, it contains so much carbohydrates, it contains so much fats, etc., etc., etc. Now, try to understand something. Well, I'm not against all the nutritional contents that is there on that packet.
Right.
But what is the use of all that nutritional content if the person consuming it is not actually digesting it?
Right.
It is like, I've eaten a very nutritious item or food item, and well, because I have a bad digestive system, I've just excreted the whole amount of it. Right?
Right.
Does it make sense?
No.
So, the nutrition is not what is more important. For Ayurveda, when we are talking about food and its digestion, it is the digestion which is most important. So, if we have nutritive food and are unable to digest it, it makes no sense to that person.
Right.
Because he's going to get nothing out of that nutritive food. And therefore, his system is not going to get energized with it. Whereas, if a person is not having all the nutritive food, all a complete nutritive food, but still has a very good digestive system, is able to process that not very nutritive food and get the best out of it and still remain healthy.
Okay.
So I feel we should
Yes.
work on this in another
In
session.
the next session. So we have a whole discussion, a whole lot of discussion on understanding the digestive system according to Ayurveda. And well, thank you so much, doctor, for making your time and giving us such a knowledgeable session. And looking forward to the next conversation with you on digestion.
Yes, it was a pleasure. It was indeed a great pleasure to be with you here.
Thank you so
very
much.
much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you found the video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also hit the bell icon to keep up with regular updates.